Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. This is The Gailey Show. I am your host, JP Dare-Bogosian. We are your answer to what is a queer thing that you could read, watch, or go to this week. And today I am very happy to tell you that our guest is Abigail Dillon, he, him pronouns. Abigail joins us from the Metropolitan Library Service Agency. So for all of you queer book readers out there, this is going to be a very fun conversation. So here we are, Abigail, Abby, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, so tell us some more about, well, first, yourself. Tell us more about yourself and your role at MELSA.
Yeah. So I am one of the project managers at MELSA, which is a regional public library system. I know that when you expand the name out, it doesn't necessarily sound like that because it's called a library agency, but we are a regional public library that works with the 8 public library systems in the 7-county metro region. We provide resources and coordinate programs that are available metro-wide to the 100-plus library branches. And for more information, 100-plus, and that's across, those 7 different counties. So
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was really, that many. That's crazy in a good way.
Yeah, it's fascinating on my end to see how big it is and kind of get that scope, because on my end, I tend to work with smaller teams of folks from those different library systems. One of those teams is a collection development team in which we provide and plan out the various overdrive, also known as Libby collection, that is shared between those different metro libraries. And that's also part of what I'm coming on to talk about today, is that some of the queer titles available in our Libby collection. So.
Yes. So I've actually heard of Libby. That's how into the book world I have gotten, where I have actually heard of Libby, which is, hey, kudos to me, right? Not about me today. So tell us about the Pride lists, because I was very excited when our executive producer, Jen Pounds, was like, hey, look at this. And I was so struck by so you go to your website and you can look at all of these queer books by identity. So get us started there. Tell us the overview of the Pride lists.
Yeah. I do want to give credit to also where the Pride list, the origin of it, because this was started back in 2022. And it was I helped build it, but also there was a team, again, from each of the different library systems that came together to plan for the Twin Cities Pride Festival. And so this list of titles for, different queer identities came out of that discussion with these different library staff. And because we wanted to have something to share with people at the Pride Festival, something that they could come away from the festival with access to books and both ebooks and audiobooks that they could access just kind of through a link. And so from there, we decided that we wanted to, one, break it out by identity, because a lot of times if you say to someone hey, there's LGBTQ rep in this book, and especially if they're kind of under a more underrepresented identity, it's going to be more exciting for them to say oh no, I am actually seen here. This is this is my identity. It's not just a broad general, it's got this sort of relationship or it's got this sort of identity. It's no, this is specifically something that can relate to me. And then from there, we wanted to make sure that it was accessible to all ages. So within each identity, so if you go to this page, it is MELSA.org. That is I know my own workplace. MELSA melsa.org/pride-list. Pride-book list. So melsa.org/pride-book list.
And we will include that in our show notes and on our website. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
You're good. And from there, you can, get to just in general lists of just titles on our Libby collection. We have links directly to a kids list of kids titles, list of teens, and list of adult titles with different LGBTQ rep. Those aren't broken down by identity because we simply don't have that ability, but they are like gathered in one place that you can browse. But if you stay on that page on melsa.org, we will also break down titles by, for example, hey, if you're looking for bi rep, you can click on that little tab and it will give you titles that have bi characters for kids or for teens or for adults.
I love
and we have
that,
it broken down. Yeah.
It's so special to have that. A lot of the lists, actually all of the lists that I have seen are either by identity, and then it's just a big long list of books, right? And then they're specialized. I think if they're, here's a kids list and then it's specialized that way. But to have a comprehensive list like this, where you can go in and look for representation and then see here are for kids, here are for teens, and here for our adults it's just really special. And I also say that for my own personal, because sometimes even at my age, I like going back and reading YA. Because I think YA queer lit is the most revolutionary thing we've got going on right now. Like the things that they're doing there, those writers, is absolutely far and away the most revolutionary. And I stand by that, and I will argue to the death on that hill. But sometimes I'm just like, I want to read those books to kind of get a sense of like, oh, this is like my younger self needs this, right now. Yes, I'm an adult, but my younger self could really enjoy reading this right now. And even I love seeing how kids' books, our queerness is being represented in them as well, even as an adult, because I'm like, oh, can you imagine what this would have been like if I would have had this, in fourth grade or sixth grade or kindergarten? So yes, I love that you all do that. Please keep doing that.
We do. And we update it actually every year. It actually just recently went through an update in preparation for this year's Pride. So it's something that like we review every year to see like, hey, are there new titles? Are there things that like we want to like kind of switch out to, keep this list updated? So this is something that like yearly we keep an eye on to make sure that, we're including new voices every time. So it's really exciting.
What is that process like now? Because we're in an amazing period where there are a lot of books being released, like every year, which is fantastic. And that's kind of why we wanted to have our show race to kind of help people like flag, like here are resources and here to know that these things are coming out, because there is a lot of content, which is amazing. So how do you all, like, what is your process in terms of scouting and identifying the books that you're going to include in the Pride list?
Well, a lot of it is going to be partnerships with the different libraries, because the folks like working at MELSA, I love my job, but like I'm also very much a background worker. I'm not kind of like up front and like interacting with folks. And so a lot of it's going to be like relying on the folks who work at the library and the library staff to be kind of keeping eyes and ears out. So every year when I get like my little Avengers team together to prepare for the Twin Cities Pride Festival, I'll reach out to them to be like, hey, are there new titles that we need to add? Is there something we need to update to the list? Are there titles that we missed? And I know that on my part, I myself am aromantic and asexual. And so just in my personal life, I do keep a little bit of my finger on the pulse of like different like aromantic and asexual representation that's coming out. And so that's also something that I get to contribute just from my own personal life. So it's kind of a blend of teamwork and also things that are important to me. So,
Well, we are going to continue this conversation on our YouTube channel and everywhere that you stream your podcasts. For now, we're going to have to leave it there, but I'm going to ask you, Abigail, about those recommendations that you may have as well from the Pride list. So continue the conversation. Follow us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thegailyshow or stream us wherever you get your podcasts. That is something that I did want to ask you, is about representation and for those identities, because we're finally starting to see literature being produced in those spaces. So do you have recommendations for our listeners?
oh boy, I do. So I've got some representation, some recommendations. Both in all three categories. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to say all of the titles. If you go to the Pride list, the Pride book list, you are going to find a lot more titles than the ones I'm going to mention here. But I do have like personal recommendations from each and every age range that we offer. So for kids, we've got a couple of titles. They're not a whole lot, but still, like you had mentioned before, just like anything to like go back and be like, hey, if I had this as a kid, it would have meant so much. It would have given me words for something that I didn't know. Like I knew was a part of me, but I didn't have the words for it, and I just felt different. So there were a few of the kids' books that I've read. There is Every Bird a Prince by Jen Reese. There is A-OK by Jared Green. There is Rick by Alex Gino. And you might know Alex Gino's work for also writing Melissa, which is a transgender kids book. So this Rick is actually, it stands on its own, but it also can work as a sequel to Melissa. And then there's Hazel's Theory of Evolution by Lisa Jen Bigelow. And these four titles I kind of wanted to highlight specifically because while unfortunately there's not non-binary protagonists in these books, at least we do get like two books that have boys as leads and two books that have girls as leads and as like, you know, the Arrow and Ace rep. So A-OK and Rick both have specifically focused on like on the journey of a boy kind of coming into his identity. Rick focuses more specifically on you know, the character of Rick coming into his own and understanding you know, the words aromantic and asexual. Whereas for A-OK, that protagonist is it's a part of his story, but it's not the central part of his story. And similarly with Every Bird a Prince and Hazel's Theory of Evolution, again, both girl leads with Every Bird a Prince, which is of the four books, Every Bird a Prince is kind of the one that's got like a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of speculative fiction behind it. They're all coming of age, but this one is a little bit more of the fantasy style, and Every Bird a Prince does focus specifically on the main character coming into her identity and realizing, oh, there's words for me, there's words to describe me. Whereas Hazel's Theory of Evolution is more kind of like a broadly about Hazel, the titular character's kind of growth and discovering her identity as a part of that, but it's not the central driving point. And I know that's like, there are different types of representation. Sometimes it's just nice to have a main character that shares your identity. And in other times, it's nice to have the exploration of that identity centered. So you get kind of all aspects. You get different levels of that within these four books for kids. So those were the ones I'd recommend. Personally, Every Bird a Prince, like hit me in my childhood. So that's like an extra personal recommendation from me. So those are the books that like I wanted to highlight as teens, but there are a couple others on the list as well. For kids. We haven't gotten to the teens yet. So,
part of me, particularly when it comes to queer lit, I want to take that qualifier away of for kids, because I think that writing for kids is so much more difficult because you only get 500 words to distill the essence, right? And to make all of these important queer identities and experiences like distilled into their pure essence and then say, here it is. You might get, you're aided by, visuals, right? When you've got the right artist that is with you. But I think that these books are also really important for adults, even in helping to begin to understand identities that are not your own and these experiences within the rainbow. And I think people would be like, oh, come on, JP, you mean I'm dumb and I gotta read a kid's book? I'm like, no. This is like the beginning of the journey. It is so well written to be able, and it's just a few amount of words. A novel, you have 10,000, 90,000 words to explore something, but you get the essence of it from a kid's book. And that's why I think that queer kids' books are so important, not just for kids, but for, all age ranges. But I do want to get to the teens recommendations. But first, maybe your take on that.
Yeah, well, one, that is, like, I would agree, like, it's really important. I guess I should clarify that these aren't picture books. Like, there is one, like... Okay. There are like comic books and like graphic novels, but these are like middle grade reader level books.
Even better.
I have not yet seen a picture book about aromanticism and asexuality, which I would love to see.
Right.
But I would absolutely agree that like being able to like even as a kid, like even as like very early readers, have that space to even just be like, oh, this is okay. Like, cause like even by the time you're in middle school, like a lot of these stories do explore like the pressures of their middle school. They're still kids, and yet the pressures to conform to certain ideas of what it means to grow up. So like even starting from an earlier age would be like, amazing. Yeah.
So what are your teen book recommendations?
So for teen book recommendations, there is a delightful amount of novels with aromantic or asexual characters, and there's no way I'm going to get to them all. I do want to highlight a couple of titles though. One that just came out just recently last week. Well, last week as of this recording. So April 16th.
So in April.
In April. Was, it's Dear Wendy by Anne Zhao, which is an aro ace love story. So like both protagonists are aromantic and asexual, but it focuses on their blossoming friendship as if, and kind of given the same weight that a lot of stories give to romantic relationships. And it's really beautifully done. I cried. And Anne Zhao also does a really good job of specifically highlighting like experiences of immigrants as well, and of queer people of color, which was really nice to read and really well done. So that is like a brand new recommendation. We also have excuse me, Loveless by Alice Oseman, who you also might know as the author of Heartstopper. So we've got some of Osman's work, because Osman themselves is aro ace. And so a lot of times like that will show up in their work as well. And Loveless is considered a bit of a breakthrough in terms of representation, and that is available on Libby as well. All of these titles I'm mentioning here are available on Libby through that list. There'll be little links to them.
We just did a episode of This Queer Book Saved My Life with a guest who was talking about Loveless. So folks can check that out as well. But yeah, it's a really, really important book.
For sure. Another kind of like title, actually a pair of titles I want to highlight is from one of the headlining authors of last year's Teen LitCon, Darcy Littlebadger. So Darcy Littlebadger's books, A Snake Falls to Earth and Alatsui, both have protagonists that are somewhere on the Aro and Ace spectrums. So those are also like, again, like this is something that's really being taken off in the YA kind of literature world, is a lot of these protagonists. We also, when we talk about like the different spectrums, the spectrum of like asexuality, So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole, which is also a newest release, has a lead who is demisexual, which is on the asexual spectrum. So there's also like a couple of titles there that are going to be about not just like, you know, one type of asexuality, but a broad range of it. And then just kind of like a little bit of a personal recommendation. The first place I saw myself represented, the first title that I ever read with Aro Ace representation was Justina Ireland's Dread Nation and its sequel, The Deathless Divide, which is this delightful duology about two young Black women, one whom is bisexual and the other who is Aro Ace, trying to survive a zombie apocalypse that interrupted the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
And it's thrilling, it's adventurous, and it does an excellent job of exploring like both identities and giving both characters a chance to shine, as well as kind of examining like the socio-political fallout of like what would happen in such a case. And it's really well done. And it's also, because it was the first place that I found myself like in a book, it really made me happy. So so those are kind of like
also what an
outline of like really good titles. And one of the things that's really nice about these different YA titles is frequently if folks are writing about aromanticism and asexuality, they're also usually including some other type of queer rep as well. And so like obviously these are focused on like who the leads are, but you're also going to find like overlap and intersectionality, and it's really wonderful. So do you have any? I've also got like a bunch of adult books to talk about, but any questions about the teen, the YA?
We're into the podcast YouTube channel, so time is meaningless here. So
all right.
I want to hear them. Give us those adult title recommendations.
Yeah. All right. So we have several titles for adult readers. The number of titles on the YA section kind of is overwhelming, but we do have titles for like specifically targeted towards adult readers. There is an asexual romance, so a character who is asexual but experiences romantic attraction, in a book called The Romantic Agenda by Claire Kahn. Claire Kahn has actually written a couple of other Aro and Ace novels as well for YA. You'll find her multiple times on the list. In our adult section is where you're also going to find a significant number of nonfiction titles that like discuss like how to navigate the world as aromantic or asexual, or even just kind of an understanding of what that means. So there are several types of like, I like to call them Ace and Aro 101 books, not in like a derogatory way, but like, so you need an introduction. And these are like solid books that give like an introduction to like what these mean. Like what these identities mean, like if you're questioning or like, hey, does this match with some of my experiences? or if you're looking to, or if you already identify with it and you're looking for a place to be seen, like these are really great titles for that. So there's a book called just Ace, all caps, Ace by Angela Chen. And in Heartstopper, we actually see, I think, the character of Isaac kind of like picking up that book specifically from the library. There is Hopeless Aromantic, which focuses specifically on aromanticism. And there's also, for other titles to start exploring asexuality and aromanticism, you've got I Am Ace, you've got Sounds Fake But Okay, and you have Ace Voices, and all of these are, you can find on the list. A personal recommendation that's a little bit of a step beyond kind of the introduction and kind of starts diving more into history and kind of the various intersections of like what it means to be on a societal level, what asexuality might mean, is called Refusing Compulsory Sexuality, a Black asexual lens on our sex-obsessed culture. A very long title. It's by Sharonda J. Brown. It is very good because they do a really great job of not just exploring the history of asexuality and like going back to like farther than what a lot of people think like asexuality existed as, but also a really good job of exploring how that intersects with the history of the United States and the history of colonization and the history of racism within the United States. So that is like a personal recommendation because it's a very well-researched and accessible, like well-written book that kind of gives you not just a history of this one identity, but a history of LGBTQ, like in general throughout the United States and how it all ties together. So that is kind of like a personal recommendation of mine just because of how much I learned reading this book. It was truly fantastic.
I love that title of compulsory sexuality, and it's already got me thinking about how absolutely that is like a project of colonization. And that enforced compulsion, right, to it. And even in, weirdly, the Barbie movie, like, I remember afterwards going, like, why is everybody heterosexual? Like, you had this whole queer subtext throughout the entire film. Like, why not make it text? Why wasn't... I really wanted, like, 2 or 3 Kens and Barbies at the end to be like, wait a minute, why are you making me be straight? I'm not straight or cis.
And, like one of the things, I agree on that. And, like, one of the things that got me really excited about the end is Barbie deliberately says, like, I don't want to be in a romance. Like, you're telling me this is what I need. This is what makes me happy. But I don't want that. And so, like, I'm like, yes. Yeah. Yes, Barbie.
Yes. Right? Hopefully, maybe there will be a sequel. I just heard the director, and I can't believe I'm blanking on her name right now, was talking about if I can find... Thank you, Greta. It was like, if I can find the hook for what that movie would be, well, maybe here's the hook. Queerness in Barbie Land. Like, explore it. It exists. Clearly, it exists. You just need to make it into the text, not just the queer subtext. But Abigail, this has been really lovely. I have really enjoyed this conversation. You have given myself and our listeners a wide swath of reading to do over the next, particularly for Pride. Obviously, we want people reading for Pride, but moving beyond that because Pride all year long. So thank you for being on the show to share those titles with us. I love this. You have a standing invitation to come back, and I hope that you do.
Thank you.
To talk about new titles that are coming on there or existing titles that you want to highlight for people. That is exactly what we're trying to do here on this show. So this has been an utter delight. Thank you for joining us on The Gaily Show.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And again, just kind of throwing out there, if you want to learn more about MELSA or the Pride List, our site is melsa.org, MELSA.org, as well as the Pride List. If you want to access that, it's melsa.org/pride-booklist.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Abigail.
Yes, thank you.
And joining me now is a very special guest here on The Gailey Show. We love to highlight and bring to the forefront those folks who are queer, but maybe in the background of productions. And so we have an amazing sound designer who is joining us today. And they are, I'm going to hold it up for folks that are watching on YouTube. They are the sound designer for Seven Keys, which is playing currently at the Yellow Tree Theater in St. Paul, I believe. Where's Yellow Tree? I'm not quite sure. Dana can tell us that. Osseo.
Yeah, it's actually Osseo. Yeah.
All right. Well, my guest is Dana Anderson. Dana, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Seven Keys and your role in it.
Oh, happily. So Seven Keys was originally a screenplay back in the late 20s.
Wow.
And was done in a variety of forms. It was done originally in the 20s and then remade later. And then Charles Fraser, good friend of mine and an extraordinary actor and a writer and producer, adapted the show for theater and has really brought that production to life. And so this is his version of it, and he is one of the co-directors of the production.
So what is the production like? What's the plot? It's got this great like black and white photo here.
It's kind of a zany, wacky. How can I describe it? It is a mystery, also with a lot of action. There's comedy in it. There's love in it. There's all kinds of things, and there's some definite twists to the plot. It takes place in a hotel in the middle of a storm, and then subsequently there is crime and misdemeanors and all kinds of other things going on. So it's a really entertaining show, very fast paced. And really well done, with some really fun twists that no one will expect in the show. So it's something that it's not only a great show, it's just incredibly entertaining. So I think it's a show people will really enjoy. I went to the first read through and I was already completely captivated, and kept on the edge of my seat the whole time. It's just one of those fast paced things that moves along, and the way it's portrayed is outstanding. So it's been really wonderful to be part of this production.
And so the sound design must have been really fun to do.
Yeah, it's sound design it varies. So you have to, part of good sound design is, and same with lighting. If you notice it, it's not right. If you don't notice it, it's not right. It's like this. It's one of the spices. It really can set context and mood. And if you see a good show, sound design, music can play a really critical part. It's actually can be almost like a character and or part of the set. In this particular case, the challenge is this is a film in the 20s. And it was originally more kind of just beyond the silent film era. So it has kind of a retro feel to it. And it also has a whole bunch of different cues because it's fast paced. The challenge here is to try to make sure that those cues are all set up exactly in a certain way and ironing out all of those cues, the blocking, figuring out how to actually add sound design that fits in the context of the show. Every show is different, and so this one's been a little different for me as well. Also, with co-producers and co-directors, there's often different opinions about things. So part of this is the fine art of being graceful in managing through, well, maybe it should be this way. No, I think it should be that way. So you have to kind of have to be flexible and then ready for a change at any time, right up to the dress rehearsal when we get through that. So we're in the middle of what we call tech, which is really working through all those fine details. We want person screaming here. We want wind there. We want background music here. We want a door squeak there. So I never really know what's going to come across my virtual studio desk at any given time of what might be needed for the production. But that makes it fun.
So I was going to ask about that. So the sound design is not only the like score or music component, it also includes, excuse me, the like sound effects, like doors
Special
creaking.
effects.
And
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so this one, usually the ones I do are more custom, underscore, where I actually write music for the show and or songs. But in this case, there was the emphasis was more on, because of the nature of the show, a little bit more on special effects and also the use of period music. So I had fun researching 1920s hits and musicians to fit the context of the movie.
And so much of that is in the public domain now. So you must have had just, a buffet of options to use.
There's a lot of options. And, again, it's about picking the right, let's get rid of this here. So it's about picking the right piece. And there's part of it is down selecting into, what makes sense, right? And then trying things on for size. Maybe this is better. What about that? You'll get something like, we need a romantic song, right? Oh, okay. What are the romantic songs of the 1920s, right? Here are some hits, and then you can kind of pick the one that makes the most sense. So it's more like curation of the sound design in this particular case, as opposed to the development of original content.
Do you get to like arrange the music, or are you dealing with a specific like file that you then, edit down for the mood of the scene? Yeah.
So usually I do custom music and I arrange it. In this particular case, because of the time involved, which was a relatively short period of time, and I did do a few custom themes for some of the characters, but it was clear that we were better off using period music in this particular case. So it's about finding the right piece of music, listening to a lot of music, and then taking segments of that music from famous people to fit the theme. So it's sort of a combination of, in this particular case, using existing works, but finding the right piece to fit the mood.
Is there a particular piece that you're most excited about, like really shines in this? I guess shine is the wrong verb, but like really comes through in this show?
That's, again, shine is a funny word in these shows because you don't really want to have it stick out too much. For me, from a sound design perspective, there's an announcement at the beginning and there's another and it's designed to be an old radio. Right. So part of the fun for me was figuring out how to do kind of that intro, how to actually make it sound like a newscast.
Yeah.
Then tinkering around with the actual treatment of like how gravelly, how crackly do you want the radio? And you're kind of weighing kind of that retro feel of a radio with, can the audience, some of much maybe are perhaps a little hearing impaired, making sure they can actually hear the words. So there's that kind of interesting, almost technical challenge of figuring out those levels on how to treat the announcement. So those were fun to do in particular.
And do you run the soundboard during the shows, or is your work complete once the show opens?
My work is complete, ideally. I could run the show, but there's actually a board operator and the floor, the stage manager who's doing all the light and the sound kind of in, the person behind the curtain that ideally has all the cues in a program that allows you to play them in the right order. And it's a matter of hitting the right thing at the right time. And in this particular show, there's a lot of movement and a lot of different things going on. So although the sound design and the cues were relatively straightforward to actually execute on that and get the timing down, the person that's operating the stage manager will have their hands full, making sure everything comes out
Well,
right.
we're going to continue this conversation on our YouTube channel. And for folks who subscribe to us on our podcast, free, available everywhere that you stream your podcast. We're going to have to leave it there, though, for right now. Dana, thank you so much for being on The Gaily Show.
Just absolutely my pleasure.
And it's fun when we get to that. Now we get to continue on in the conversation. So you actually have a really interesting day job. So I have written down here that you do strategy and advising work for Fortune 100s.
Yeah, I do. In fact, I'm going to go see one tomorrow. So it's, I do technical and business strategy advisory with huge companies, McDonald's, Pepsi Cola, 3M, Cargill, whoever.
Wow.
Companies like that. So, and it usually involves a company that has a high level strategy. We want to create a product as a service, but we don't know how to actually do that from a business and a technical perspective. So we sort of my team and I work to sort of connect strategy to execution and business and technology. So we live in that space of how do we take this idea and make it real and make it happen. So it's a fun job because you're sort of shaping, you use a lot of creative and combination of creative, systems thinking along with analytical thinking to kind of bring together that strategy, validate it, and then help companies, create a roadmap to execute it. So that's the day job stuff. It's not as fun as writing music, but maybe somewhat similar.
Well, maybe it is.
Construction. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's all the same thematic of kind of the creative and the analytical working together, and orchestration. A lot of this is how can you get all the pieces together and assemble it into something beautiful.
Absolutely. So did the day job career come first before getting into music and sound design?
Well, yeah, sort of. So I'm getting back to what I probably should have been doing my whole life. I didn't have a lot of support as a young person, as a person who hadn't come out as trans until I was in my 50s. I sort of I foreclosed my identity. I sort of adopted, okay, I'm going to do what everybody else expects me to do. And that didn't involve music. I did start out as a music major, music physics major at St. Olaf College back in the day. And I did a lot of sound, recording. I worked for WCAL at the time, doing a lot of work with classical music. I was writing music. But then I sort of thought, okay, it's time to grow up and stop all that nonsense and go, be an adult and get a day job and all that. So I feel like, and then what I did is I always kept doing music, but I sort of kept it to myself for the most part. And then recently I've decided this all needs to be in the world and I need to just start doing that, whether it be sound design or composing or performing. I'm just going to make that happen. So we'll see. It's how to make a small fortune in the music business, start with a large one. So I would have a career in music if I could afford it right now. But so I do it as a passion that I hope to transition into a career, and we'll see what happens. So meanwhile, I have a way to pay for it, which is good.
Right? Isn't it funny that we make art feel like, art and music and creativity, that's a youthful thing, and the adulting thing is to get rid of that, when really you need that, I would say that creativity is the essence of adulting, right? If you will, you really come into it, but we have to leave it behind somehow as kids and youth and college. And
it wasn't, and it's, I think the values, especially back then, it was not considered, at least in my realm, was not considered a real viable thing to do as a career. It was seen as, well, you do that for fun, right? And the answer is, well, you do what you love and whatever that is. But I always regretted, because I have a strong need to connect emotionally with people and to emote via creativity, and create connection. I'd find little ways of doing it, but it was never quite as pure as what I do now. And it is, I would say, if I could talk to 18 or 19-year-old me, I'd say, you have a gift. I know everybody's telling you to go over here, but just do what you know, what you love, and see what happens. But you can't. It's been a satisfying career and kind of good, experience generally. It's hard to be a trans person and be in technology. But you do what you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a meme on the internet recently that was like, I don't want AI to take the creative jobs. I want AI to take the boring jobs so that we all have time to do the creative work. And I'm like, yes, exactly. Give us more time to be creative. Yeah.
And I think that's a hot debate right now, especially AI music, AI film, which kind of AI and you see automated design tools that, come up with a logo or whatever. And, I advise companies on AI today. And I do. And what does it mean? And the answer is, well, I happen to know a lot more about what's going on behind the scenes, and it's more about machine learning and the aggregation of data. But I personally believe that what the issue really isn't AI itself; it's the economics that it creates. I believe there'll always be room for human and human connection. It just will take a different form. But the bigger issue is that what happens? If you automate everything, then first of all, who gets the value of that? And second of all, where is the creativity in that? And is it creativity? It's a really interesting question. When I write music myself, I'm drawing from Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and, Chopin, whoever else. And that's and I have a set of rules. In a way, I'm kind of an AI engine, taking those ideas and then making them my own. And so it's, that's sort of what is being automated, is the ability to draw from multiple sources. So it's just an interesting technological, disruptive time. Just like in the 70s, they thought computers are going to put everybody out of business. And then the World Wide Web came and, I was going to change the world, and it does. But usually when you get through past the hype cycle and you get to where the real value is, things generally settle out. Although this is a fairly disruptive change, I think. Not to talk too much about, business stuff. So.
I was listening to a podcast that was telling us, the audience, that there is a new AI where if you dump in lots of audio of your voice, then you can type it out, like what you want the thing to say, and it sounds like you. Right. And I'm just like, oh no, you're going to put podcasters and radio folks out of business. Like, no, stop, shut that down.
Yeah, it's really, it's an issue. Yeah. If you're an announcer, and again, where's the value? And again, the economics of it. And then the ownership of the property. There's just a whole lot of, it is very disruptive. And just like if you think about, music and the amount of revenue in music, Spotify is a wonderful thing, but you put something on Spotify and you get paid a millipenny per play. You might get millions of plays, but you don't make any money. So how do you afford to do it? You can't, unless you subsidize it with a day job. So unless you're a mega star. So it is a significant change. I think we can rise above it. But we have to, part of it is you're not going to stop it. You're not going to be able to just say, well, we're not going to do AI because people are going to do it anyway. So you might as well figure out how to make the best of it, but then also point out the unintended side effects or known hazards of the economics, of the ethics, and other things. It definitely needs to be an ongoing dialogue.
Yeah. If we had big enough hammers, like the Luddites, just smash all the servers. I'm joking.
Yeah, no problem. We'll just take care of that. Yeah, no problem.
But so as a do you have albums as a composer?
No, I'm just launching my stuff on, Spotify. And if you want to find out, you can just go to danavannon.com to find out more. But I'm just in the process of launching my first stuff publicly. I do a lot of public performances of music, and I'm just now kind of getting that pushed out. But that's kind of the big push for this, these coming months, is to get stuff out for the general public. And then I'm doing more live performances of music. But then I also will continue to do sound design for theatrical productions. I do a lot of things for Calissa Hall at Frosted Glass Creative.
Okay.
You might, last year was like, she came and she said, could you write a song for, for the Fairy Queen for Midsummer's?
Oh,
and I was like,
that must have been fun.
And I was like, sure. Like, I have no idea. I mean, I'm just biasing. If somebody asks me to do something, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to figure out how to do it. And then, it was a matter of a technical or creative challenge. And then when I saw it performed by the performers who added their own stuff to it, I was like, that's actually pretty good. It was really a fun, it's fun and it adds to the show. So, I mean, there's a lot of satisfaction in seeing your work, again, more on the behind the scenes side. But I do have a lot of passion for that. So I'm hoping we'll see what happens. I'd love to do the underscore or the sound design for a short, or, I dream of getting into some Sundance someday, or playing at the Ordway. I mean, I've got the same dreams everybody else does. So I'm going to keep plugging away, and we'll check back in a year or see, or whatever, to see how I'm doing. So yeah.
If folks want to connect with you about any upcoming live performances, how would they do that?
They can just go to danavannon.com. It's DANA, V as in Victor, ANNEAN.com, danavannon.com. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, when you're at the Ordway, or when you have a new film coming out that you've done the composition for, then come back on the Gailey Show. We want to talk all about it.
Well, that'd be awesome, and I'd appreciate it. And we really, as I've listened to the episodes of what you're doing, and kind of I just have to say that it means so much to have advocacy, especially in the world today as it is today, have people celebrate success, to really look at how we can. It's really very uplifting to be able to have the opportunity to do this and hear other people's stories about how they're thriving. We're not just surviving, but thriving in a world where it's not so easy. Mm-hmm. So we really appreciate everything you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And it's really nice to be, partnering with AM 950 on not just like our shows, but to have like a whole afternoon of queer content, and to be providing that service. Because we noticed, like, in the radio podcasting space, there really wasn't anybody doing that. And there is a lot of thriving happening in the Twin Cities, happening in Minnesota, because we get out and we vote. And we have the correct leadership for the most part. Still have to push them on some things. But we are a state where things aren't regressing. They're moving forward. And we're pushing for that. And we're seeing that happening in the leadership. And so that does lead to the opportunities like this, where we can really showcase all of the creators in all of the different forms and the work that they're doing here. So, thank you for the kind words, and we're gonna keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and remember, at the Yellow Tree Theater, 7 Keys, and May 2nd through the 19th. So I'll be at as many shows as I can get to. So maybe we'll see you there.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dana, for joining us here on The Gailey Show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that is our show for today. Thanks, everyone, for listening and or watching. Our podcasts are executive produced by Jim Pounds. Creative and accounting support provided by Gordy Erickson. Production, distribution, and marketing support provided by Brett Johnson, Chad Larson, Laura Headland, and Jennifer Ogren from AM 950. You can find us on social media. Search for This Queer Book Saved My Life on Facebook. We're at This Queer Book on Instagram, and at _Gailey Show. Follow us on Instagram for preview clips from upcoming episodes. For The Gailey Show, check out our YouTube channel, unless you're watching us there right now. We're also on AM 950's YouTube channel and Facebook page. As always, you can connect with us through our website, thisqueerbook.com. On our website, you can leave me a voice message of the current LGBTQ books, film, or TV you're loving right now. And if you send me a message, I will play it on the air to share with our community. Go to our homepage, thisqueerbook.com, scroll down, and you will see an orange box with a microphone. Click it and share your message of what queer media you're loving to watch or read. And if you have LGBTQ entertainment news with a Minnesota angle, email gayleyshow@thisqueerbook.com. That's GAILY show@thisqueerbook.com. And until our next episode, see you queers and allies in the bookstores.